The next guest I have the honor is to introduce one of the most exciting young faces to public service in the country, U.S. Housing and Urban Development Secretary Julian Castro. Secretary Castro oversees 8,000 employees and a budget of $46 billion, using a performance-driven approach to achieve the department's mission of expanding opportunity for all Americans. Utilizing an evidence-based management style, he has charged the department with one goal: giving every person, regardless of their station in life, new opportunities to thrive. I know we are all looking forward to these remarks, so please join me in welcoming HUD Secretary Julian Castro. Welcome back.
Good morning, Atlanta. What a fantastic welcome. And thank you all so much for having me. And thank you, Maggie, for your gracious introduction. I also want to thank the entire team at Operation Hope for bringing us together this morning. I can't believe that it's been a year already since the last Hope Global Forum. I'm thrilled to be back. If you believe that the power of an idea can change the world, and if you care deeply about harnessing that power to improve the lives of our fellow citizens, then this annual meeting is just the event for you. And let me tell you, and many of y'all know this better than I do because you've known him for much longer, we owe a big debt of gratitude to Operation Hope founder and Forum co-chair, John Hope Bryant. Let's give him a big round of applause for his leadership. Thank you, John, for your vision and your strong leadership. And I know that today there's so many phenomenal leaders in this room. You represent different areas of global business and philanthropy. You're economists and engineers, public servants, and corporate executives. But what unites everyone in this room is a commitment to ensuring that opportunity isn't something that's reserved for just a few, but instead, it's something that's in reach for all. That's the mission of Operation Hope, a mission that seeks to empower every person and every community, not out of charity, but because broadly shared opportunity has always been the cornerstone of America's strength. It's also a mission that recognizes the promise and the possibility that lies within all people. Most people, no matter where they come from or what they look like, no matter what faith informs their life or if they have no religious belief, and no matter who they love or how much money they earn, they want to do what's right. And if you talk to folks, you learn pretty quickly that at their core, what most want is fairly straightforward and simple. The chance to make the most of their dreams, the ability to care for the people who count on them, and the confidence that in this nation, hard work will be rewarded. Now, you won't hear this from the distract and divide caucus that often is loud in Washington, D.C. But President Obama has fought hard to make sure that that basic proposition is real for more Americans. And I'm convinced that when historians have their say, this president will go down as one of the best job presidents, one of the best education presidents, and best opportunity presidents in United States history. It's also true that we have a responsibility as leaders and citizens to build on the progress of the last 7 years. Because as far as we've come, we also know that there's still too many Americans who are forced to sit on the sidelines because of barriers that still exist to getting a quality education, a good job, and a secure place in the middle class. How do we tear down those barriers and create an economy that works for them? How do we build an inclusive, level playing field that gives every citizen the tools to compete? And how do we ensure that everyone, no matter where they live, how old they are, the color of their skin, or their zip code, can make it in America? Those are the questions the leaders at this year's Hope Global Forum are helping to answer. And that task has never been more urgent. As we've seen in communities like Baltimore and Ferguson, even when you live in a great city or near a community with growing industries and vibrant culture, it's still possible to be cut off from opportunity. During a visit to Ferguson, I learned a sobering statistic that a child growing up in the upscale Clayton area of St. Louis can expect to live 18 years longer than a child growing up just 8 miles away in the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood. Think about that. A few months ago, the Washington Post ran a story comparing life expectancy rates in Baltimore's neighborhoods to those of various nations around the world. They found that 14 neighborhoods in Baltimore, including Sandtown, Winchester, where Freddie Gray grew up, have lower life expectancies than North Korea. In these United States, a nation founded on the principle of equal opportunity, that's unacceptable. I'm proud to say that the President is committed to doing everything in his power with the 372 days left in this administration to tackle the inequality crisis and foster enduring prosperity for more communities. And HUD is helping to advance that opportunity agenda. And I'd like to spend just a few minutes discussing 3 key ways that we're doing that. First, we're working to make fair housing real in every community in our nation. As many of you know, HUD announced new guidelines last year to fulfill the promise of the Fair Housing Act. In addition to banning outright discrimination, the Fair Housing Act also requires communities to actively promote equal opportunity and access to fair housing. It's what's known as affirmatively furthering fair housing. But for too long, communities either haven't had the tools and guidance to do that, or they haven't been held accountable when they disregarded that responsibility. Our agency's new guidelines are going to change that. They'll also provide a fair and comprehensive process to help local governments better use resources to boost affordable housing. And from Atlanta to Alaska, more and more Americans are finding it harder to find a home that's within their budget. In fact, according to a 2015 report by the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, there's no state in this nation where a minimum wage worker working full-time can afford a 1-bedroom apartment at market rent. And in 13 states and Washington, D.C., the housing wage, what it would take to afford a 1-bedroom apartment, is more than $20 an hour. And still, despite the deepening affordability crisis, I often find that local governments use most of the traditional funding they receive from initiatives like community development block grants on non-housing projects like infrastructure. Nationally, only about 29% of CDBG funding is being used directly for housing. So we've begun working with mayors and city council leaders on designing plans that use federal resources in a more focused way, especially to create more affordable housing opportunities. Whether we're advancing fair housing or creating housing that low and middle income families can afford, our goal is simple: ensuring that every child, no matter where they're born or who their parents are, has a fair shot to go as far as their hard work and their aspirations will take them. The second thing we're doing is investing in quality education for young people and stronger job skills for their parents. Today, America finds itself in an unprecedented competition for jobs and investment, with rising nations around the world that are producing millions of young people, talented graduates with the intelligence, the drive, and the ability to innovate, to develop new technologies that are going to define progress and prosperity in the 21st century. And brain power, more than anything else, will determine which nations succeed in this new global economy and which ones fall behind. And I'm proud to say that the department I lead is doing its part to ensure that more Americans have the knowledge and skills they need to compete in this new landscape. So we're expanding learning opportunities for students, working in partnership with local school districts and with philanthropies like the Gates Foundation, who are helping to create after-school programs for low-income youth. We've also launched a new effort to connect families living in public housing to the internet. It's called Connect Home. And thanks to our partnership with mayors, nonprofit groups, and companies like Sprint, Google Fiber, CenturyLink, Best Buy, and a number of others, we're going to reach up to 275,000 individuals in 28 communities. And my goal is that by the end of this administration, by January 20th, 2017, we will have a commitment to connect every single resident of public housing to the internet. Another promising effort is an initiative we're undertaking with the Departments of Education and Energy called SEED, STEM, Energy, and Economic Development. Now, SEED is currently operating in just 4 cities: Cleveland, Tampa, Denver, and Austin. And it's helping public housing residents to train for green-collar jobs, those that are going to help power our economy today and tomorrow. But eventually, we're going to expand the initiative to 16 more cities. That'll connect more than 8,000 children and young adults to STEM learning opportunities and more than 1,000 adults to jobs. And all of this work is part of a broader effort to shape a future where every person has the chance to succeed and where every great idea can flourish. And that future has to fully include those who've made mistakes along the way, too. That's the third area where HUD is advancing the opportunity agenda, improving the odds for folks who have been incarcerated by making sure that they get a second chance. There are many in this room who know that every year, more than 600,000 Americans are released from jail or from prison. Some of them were failed early in their lives. They never even had a chance. Some of them failed themselves. But once they've served their time, they deserve a chance to go as far as their dreams and determination will take them in life. That includes folks like 31-year-old Darnell Smith, who served 10 years in upstate New York's Sing Sing Correctional Facility. When Darnell was released, his wife and children naturally were eager to have him back home. But his family lived in New York City's public housing, which until recently barred folks who'd served time or who'd even been arrested from living on the premises. Now, leaving their public housing unit wasn't an option for Darnell's family. So Darnell considered living in a homeless shelter before finally securing a room for himself in Harlem to the tune of $600 a month. Money that we all know would have gone a long way toward paying his family's rent if he'd been allowed to live with them under the same roof. Fortunately, after 2 long years, Darnell was able to take advantage of a pilot effort that's allowing some returning citizens to move into public housing. It's a partnership among the Housing Authority, the Vera Institute of Justice, the city's Department of Homeless Services, and the Corporation for Supportive Housing. In addition to lowering the barrier to securing a home, the initiative connects folks like Darnell to case management and other reentry services that are so crucial to getting stabilized on the outside. And importantly, it allows them to add their names to the lease at the end of 2 years, something that's going to help them continue to succeed long after the program ends. I want you to know that HUD supports these efforts. We also want to make sure that folks aren't denied housing opportunities just because they've had contact with the criminal justice system. That's why we recently announced new guidance to housing authorities to let them know that arrest records should not be used to keep someone from securing a home. We've also ended the decades-old one-strike policy for people arrested for drug offenses. It used to be that if someone was arrested for a drug offense, their entire family would be kicked out of public housing. It was a harsh policy that, in truth, likely did more harm than good. So now we're talking about a new approach to these lease violations. Local officials will still have the ability to evict folks when their actions warrant it, but families who pose no risk to the community won't be unduly punished. And finally, because we know that housing alone isn't enough, HUD is doing its part to help connect more returning citizens to jobs. We're investing nearly $2 million to help young public housing residents get expungements of their criminal records, something that'll help them find work and give them a better shot at turning their lives around. You know, tomorrow marks the birthday of one of the greatest champions for change, for a just and more inclusive society, a son of Atlanta, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to coming back to Atlanta on Monday to help commemorate the King holiday at the historic Ebenezer Baptist Church. Dr. King, who pastored Ebenezer Baptist from 1960 until his untimely death, once said, "Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice and struggle. The tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals." The thing is, you are those individuals. At your companies, on your community boards, and on your college campuses, You're the voice for the folks who so often don't get a seat at the table. And you're the champions for hardworking families who deserve a fair shot. You're helping to forge a more inclusive economy, one that rewards hard work and creativity, and one that will be key to a competitive United States in this 21st century. And you're helping to build a society based upon equality for all, without regard to race, gender, creed, or circumstance. That was Dr. King's dream and his prophetic gift to our nation and the world. Realizing that dream isn't inevitable, but it is possible. That's the task Dr. King left to all of us. It's the calling that in your own way, each and every day you answer. And it's the future that I believe we're already building together. Thank you so much. God bless.